Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, October 7th, 2024. Our goal here is to review the market generated information in a holistic fashion. We're intimately following the options narrative of both ES and NQ. If we have time, we'll theorize and add additional commentary towards the end. We have two videos uploaded today. One is for the typical Euro open until the Euro close, first 2.5 hours of RTH, and then the power hour for today as well. I was actually on the microphone giving some commentary, just walking through my thought process as I was stalking along during the liquidation lower that we'll review shortly. So check them out if you like. All right, let's get started with our narrative and our summary questions. Where's the market coming from? And what is price trying to accomplish? So let's look at the NQ. So actually, we'll just start with the S&P 500 just to keep it simple. So again, do remember the S&P 500 is near their all-time highs. Again, we have the bulls in control on the highest time frame and on the intermediate as well. And then even with the daily, ideally they were holding this bear flag using last week's lows and then this high. So ideally, we may just be consolidating up in this range from this bear flag. So if that's the case, given the strong close on Friday, that was a bit of surprise. So that way we finish the prior weeks above the week before. They really wanted to hold between this half point, retain this daily SMA, this 5 SMA, make a new high, and at the worst protect their low. Clearly, they closed under their open, and they did wick out their prior day's low. So we'll look at the context and see exactly what happened under the hood. But before, we'll look at the NQ, same situation, same bull flag there. They wanted to make a new high, which they did barely, and they protected their low. The low was broken in the overnight, but we won't look at that. So good job for the NQ for not breaking that for today's session. All right, perfect. So again, we understand like what was done today, but do remember this week is going to be a bit slow, as there is very light earnings until Friday, which is when we get our banks, the real start of the earnings season. And then we have a bit of a lighter data Monday, Tuesday, and even Wednesday. We do have the minutes, but I would imagine this isn't going to be too impactful, or at least it hasn't been in the past. But we'll see when we get there. Thursday is going to be CPI and PPI on Friday, and then again the bank earnings, which is when we start. So while data is a bit lighter, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we do have some very tense sentiment for the market with the geopolitical conflicts in the Middle East with Iran and Israel. So the market is a bit on edge. So we can see how they responded from the daily, and we understand the context of what we're working with from a narrative standpoint, possible catalysts. Let's actually look a little deeper and look at the NQ. So we understand that they protected their low, but what exactly did that look like? This is done on a little lighter volume from what we've seen towards the end of last week, but about what we were seeing, about on average, a little less. So this is about average, maybe below average volume, but sellers really came out and was a bit aggressive today. Minimum getting to 8,100, and we close at 7,300. They have fairly good positioning, and this makes sense given where they've been selling this whole time. This has been sellers just swarming for the NQ just in general. So really not too much to look at there. Solid positioning, no real activity at the highs, and some liquidation breaks, some singles that we've already taken care of on the market profile. And the range was about 320, same as the prior day. With the ES, we can see that the volume, this too, is a bit light from what we've been seeing, about below average. The buyers maxed out at 20K for the day, and that was earlier in the session, and then sellers really pushed down, and buyers had to kind of push back up to finish positive here. This was very buy concentrated, and we can probably look at some of this on the intraday footprints as well. So 75 points of range, solid day for the buyers with them being a bit aggressive. But what did they really get reward for? The majority of buyers are here and the price is all the way down. So, say what you mean. Who's buying? Who's selling? And I think that's an important question. All right, so we'll look at the sector tracker. We finished down 1%. So the leaders for the day is actually going to be utilities and consumer discretionary, which makes sense, as we had these geopolitical tensions and things are kind of changing, moving around. Um, People aren't as I think it's important to look at this Amazon and Tesla. One, Amazon has their whole like Prime Day going on, and just maybe not be the best time to get a bunch of like extra shit. And then Tesla, I don't want to get like political or anything like that. Elon Musk is just something else. So I don't know. It's just a lot kind of going on here. So it's interesting to see consumer discretionary. And over the past 5 days, they're actually leading us to the downside. If you look at it from a month perspective, that's not the case. So maybe just a little insight of yeah, just curious to see. But again, we have the communications who are also down, which is going to be Google and Friends. And then just really everyone was down. And do take note of technology. This was really held up by NVIDIA. NVIDIA was the only one that was really positive and up 2.25. Everyone else was getting their ass kicked. So again, I'm not saying that NVIDIA saved the market today, but good job for NVIDIA and even healthcare, just really hanging in there and not being too bad. So again, some definite weakness, some definite weakness for sure. Okay, let's look at the market profile. We'll start off with the NQ, who may or may not have done a little better, or this may just be a bit of compression from what we see. All right, so we have our prior week's candle. If I can get the damn thing, we have our prior week's candle here, our prior week's profile, and we have the current session here. Do notice, I don't know what's up with my, I have the wrong one, that's why I'm tripping. Do remember that we have our macro composite here, where we had the majority of the volume has been done near these 20K 200s. So that's actually where we started today. No surprise that we're shooting up and possibly getting rejected and finding our way back down. We did notice and we did note that the NQ really wanted to get above and use this as support. It looks like they're getting above and then they're sliding their way back down. So I'm not saying that they're weak and they're going to go to zero or anything, but something to be, something noteworthy. Well, I'm definitely not going to save that. All right, hold on. I'm going to reload this. All right, my bad. I had to reload that. Freaking deleted everything. All right, but anyways, so they're essentially just getting rejected there, and we're heading back to this zone here, which is under these 20K. So, I mean, ideally, they want to stay above the 20K. I think it's pretty simple, but they are flirting with dangerous territory with a shitload of activity done here near these 200s. Nothing has changed. They want to get above the 200s, use that as support, and then they have a bunch of clear skies and singles above us. Fairly simple. Not too much to talk about there. So really the same situation here for the ES, but the ES has some ground to give up. They really are using this 5700 as support. So I mean, really, as long as they're staying above the 5700, they're good. They're really flirting with these 30s here, and we don't have the FOMC zone um, plotted anymore, but that was essentially like up here for the most part. So as of right now, we're trading firmly within this FOMC zone. So say what you will about that. Now they're kind of threading these 30s here. So we'll see if they're able to use this as support as the buyers have been in control. Below these 30s and to the 20s, they're really kind of getting to their line in the stand, which is going to be the 5700. So yeah, it's not the best day, and that's obvious. But say what you will about this. Essentially, we're just coming back down to the balance from last week and really the balance from this 5,700 area. So, I mean, I think we're just going to just gravitate down here based off what I'm seeing. And then how we respond here at the 5,700s, we'll see, but we won't get too ahead of ourselves. But essentially, we're just balancing. We're not staying up here at these higher prices. We're gravitating seems slowly back to the 5,700s. Uh, doesn't mean that sellers are in control. It's just more buyers are willing to buy um, near that 5,700 level, and it's gently falling its way back. All right, we'll pick it up a little bit. S&P 500, 138 minute candles. Again, we're just kind of flirting with this area down there. Say what you will. Um, so I'll actually bring this down just a little bit because I use this for my market profile, but technically they haven't broke that pivot there. So I mean, that low down there is 24, let's call it. This is why I like looking at the 138 minute candles as well. So I'm not just looking at the profile. It's just a little clearer to see. And you can see the case with the NQ nowhere near there at the bottom of that zone. Doesn't mean that it won't get hit, but you know, um, NQ is doing fairly well. All right, so again, this is one of our first like real trendish kind of days. We're able to just go one direction the whole day. So I mean, fairly simple. Pushed up and it's lower highs the whole way, and lower lows the whole way. Yeah, and that's the day. Really not too much to talk about. Majority of volume was done the last 2 hours, opposed to the first. Things didn't really pick up until they just realized that no one was really able to buy. We had our liquidation lower, and we just bear flag for the remainder of the day. Tried to push up, couldn't withstand, and just held below the 50s. And then for the NQ, same situation there. Channeled lower. They were holding a bit tight, so you can definitely argue that this would have been like a possible bear flag. But the weakness that we were seeing in the ES, and then the persistent sellers that are just swarming, buyers just kind of just dried up, end up eating up this impulse candle there from Friday, and then we close below that area as well. So buyers not looking too good. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and do our replay function. We'll try this again, so just bear with me. Before we do that, just do remember that we opened in the middle of the prior day's range, like the IB mid essentially. Yeah, the IB mid. So we open lower and open in the middle of the initial balance. So you would expect some chop. You would expect some two-way trading because buyers can see possible upside, and then sellers can possibly see some downside as well. So I mean, it's just a lot of fighting going on in here. Really not too much to speak of. At least that would be the expectation, is what I'm getting at. So now that we understand that, let's look at our overnight session. Okay, I already have the replay on. So our overnight session, we gap up. And this would be the Sunday. Gap up X amount of points. Hit our head on a wall. Leg lower. Lower high. Leg lower. Just really consolidating. And then just really legging lower, not staying above the VWAP at all. Anytime we get above, those 2 times we got above, we sold off. So ideally for the overnight session into RTH, you would expect to see a reclaim of this VWAP because it wasn't done earlier. So not only are we opening in the middle of yesterday's range after coming from the highs, we also traded through the prior IB low and somewhat threatened this downside. It was about 18 points away, so I wouldn't really say threatened, but there's a lot more damn excursion eating up the prior day than it was above it. So again, this is a bit bearish in the to start the session. You can look on our video to see the kind of the posture that we were looking at the spreadsheet to understand how the sectors were behaving and so on and so forth. Same situation here for the NQ. You can see that they tried to touch it a few more times, got close but still failed. Same situation, traded under the prior day's IB low. All right. So we understand where we're at. We're in the middle of yesterday's range, or the prior day's range. And I want us to look at this quote unquote chop together, so we have some understanding of what's going on. So we have our anchor VWAP already. So again, you can see them trying to get above the full session VWAP. Each time we get above, we're selling off. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. So same situation. Again, we're just using information from the overnight. And these are 3-minute candles. So as we end the A bracket, it just looks like it's just open auction in a range with a downward skew. Okay, we make a new high on the ES and we start selling off. NQ is still in the middle of their area. NQ finally makes their new high when ES makes their second. And what's the response? We test the open. We test the open for ES and we pierce the initial balance mid. Okay. Same behavior starting to happen here on the NQ. ES touches their mid, NQ touches their open, and we're finding a new leg above. NQ unable to make a new high. ES unable to get to their damn IB high. And when that happens, they make a new low within their recent price action. Same situation for the NQ. As we get dangerously close to the low, we make a reclaim of this 5 smoothing average. Notice the tightness is starting to show here for the NQ as well. Starting to be a bit compressed. We make a new leg attempt through the IB high. And now NQ is the one kind of struggling. And we're just slowly channeling down. Not much is being shown here. Again, once we close under this 5 smoothing average, we try to pull back up. Completely engulfed. And now we're just trending below that moving average. Essentially the same thing here as well. Okay, that's a big sign right there. But what's going to happen from here? We immediately reclaim. So this should seem incredibly bullish there, and I would assume a lot of people would be expecting to buy, as I would as well. But we can't forget that we're just still in the middle of the prior days' range, which I think is pretty important, in my opinion. Struggling at the IB mid, same situation for the NQ, except they're struggling at their IB high. Slowly grinding our way down. Trading under that 5 smoothing average, we finally break above again. I can see how this would be a possible buying opportunity, but let's see how they respond. Just more two-way trading from what we can see, but they're still leaning to the downside. This is exactly what we were seeing in the first bracket. Second bracket doesn't really count as they exploded through, but once second bracket happened and these new highs happened for both, that lower high and lower lows resumed, which is the same thing that we were seeing in the overnight session. So really trending lower since the market opened. And then now we're seeing the weakness from NQ as well, as they're clearly making lower highs each time, as they were looking a little stronger than the ES, a little more sturdier, but at this point they're just both grinding lower. ES is trading at the damn lows. I think this was a scary sign for people for sure, and I think that actually may have been related to some geopolitical news. And then once that happened, NQ just said fuck it for the most part, and they weren't really able to trade any higher. And then yeah, after that, you'd assume it's just going to be kind of just bear flagging. This is when I jumped in right now. I started loading up my screens, and I understood where we were at. And yeah, it was right. It was right about here. So again, this was some massive legs lower. Again, you can look at this on the 15-minute or a 30-minute candle. But they're heading to a known area. They ended up making their reclaim there, and they really just kind of struggled um, to get back above. It took a lot of energy for them to get back up to that point, and they tried to make a new low there. It ended up being defended, and then they essentially just bear flagged for the remainder of the day. They're just kind of running out of time. So again, looking at this in hindsight, there was really no reason to try to jump in front of this for buying. So I'm glad I was able to replay this in my own head. So I mean, looking at the actual trades in real time, this low here for the NQ, this low here was at 11:30, which is the same time that ES broke their overnight low with 1, 2, 3 test and didn't hit it, and then that fourth just really squeezing under it. And I think this was with the help of like some news as well. Just a lot of fear going on here. So as the ES was breaking their overnight lows, which is really some thin volume going on from the prior day from Friday, it would make sense that you would see some sort of continuation here once the NQ breaks their low. But I mean, where would your stop be? I mean, you can say at the top of the candle there, but just seeing this in real time, I don't have that recorded, so I don't know how that would have looked. So I mean, it would be really hard to justify some trades. Looking at this, even in hindsight, I can see how these situations here can really be a possibility for you to buy, given that we were above the prior day's range, but we were near, not above the prior day's range, but we were above the prior day's IB low. So I mean, it's really just not the ideal situation for. It's really not the ideal situation for any buyers to buy when you are looking at the ES here. So I mean, there's no really reason to buy when you're like under this structure in this situation. It'll be a little different if you were above and you were kind of coming down and retesting, but the fact that you're genuinely trending lower really can't be too expected for this to hold too much, especially with this more thinner structure down here. And then even from the short standpoint, nothing really stood out for us to for us on the short side. Even looking at this in real time, yeah, you can see the initial balance mid from the prior day was being respected, and they couldn't stay above. They couldn't retest this open, but the fact that it never made it just made it a little difficult for you to really have some sort of quote unquote conviction, if you will. So really long setups down here, this doesn't really make sense. Now that I look at it in real time, this is just me just kind of trading what I was thinking, not what I was seeing. So I can't even say that with confidence. Um, in hindsight, you can possibly say this low and then being retested and then retesting this initial balance mid and filling these VWAPs. You had multiple attempts here. I really just need to kind of go on my bag and really develop some systems for these shorts. But yeah, I won't. I'll leave the thinking out because it's supposed to be more for like the price action. So again, it's not really the clearest day for me. So I'm not even gonna act like I that made sense. Even in hindsight, this was a tricky day for sure. But all right, so just to wrap it up, we'll give the buyers, as the buyers have been in control, we'll give the buyers a 4 on the NQ because they did not break their prior day's low within the RTH. And then maybe like a 3 for the ES because it could have got a lot worse, but it didn't seem the sellers were not too much urgency. We will not give the narrative to the sellers until we can get below the, honestly, until we test the 5,700. So I mean, until they take out this impulse candle here, and they close above it, below it rather, I don't really have any respect for sellers until they show it, because they're at such a disadvantage here, and they're kind of being squeezed, and it's kind of comical, to be honest. Shit, I was getting squeezed too. So again, not the best day for buyers. Solid day for the bears for the short term. We'll see if it lasts. We'll see how they perform overnight. Um, we already kind of went a little over, so we'll go ahead and stop it here. Be very important to see how these next sessions goes as we head into the CPI. It's going to be an interesting week. All right, take care.